Away from that now, the Edo State House of Assembly has passed a bill amending the Kidnapping Prohibition Law, imposing death penalty on convicted kidnappers. The bill also mandates the confiscation and demolition of properties used to facilitate kidnapping. Majority Leader Charity Aiguobarueghian highlighted the rising cases of abductions and the need for harsher penalties to curb the crime. Other lawmakers backed the legislation, arguing that the death penalty would serve as a strong deterrent and deliver justice to victims. In a related development, the Assembly has repealed the Edo State Electricity Law of 2022 to pave the way for a more robust energy framework. The new law establishes the Edo State Electricity Market, the Edo State Electricity Regulatory Commission, the Edo State Electrification Agency, and the Edo State Electricity Transmission Company, among others, reforms aimed at improving power supply in the state. Now to discuss this, we are joined by Ogechi Ogu, Executive Director, Founder, Public Awareness on Rights and Rehabilitation of Vulnerable Persons Initiative. You're welcome, Mrs. Ogu. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. So let's get started by asking You're welcome. Apologies. Let's get started by asking what impact do you think the death penalty will have on kidnapping in Edo State? Let's start there.
Okay, thank you so much. We've always had this discussion around the death penalty, and I am really getting tired of, having this discussion, because it seems as if we are seeing it that the death penalty will be the all solution to the problem. And we are forgetting the fact that in the past about 20 years or more now, that all the persons, almost everybody that has been sentenced to death are still never yet been executed. And we are thinking of that serving as deterrence. I don't know whether we actually understand the message this is passing. They are not yet, and that is not to say that I'm suggesting that the death penalty is the best option, out of this challenge. We are looking at a country where the system, the criminal justice system is still struggling. The issues of justice are equally on the front burner regarding how people are processed within the system. How are we sure that the persons that have been condemned actually may have committed the offense? I know the sentiments we have now, considering the horrendous things happening around kidnapping. But my own thought around this is that we should sit back, look at the problem holistically, seek other solutions, have a system that is functional. Because if you take statistics now, statistics across the federation, you may realize that the number of persons that have been, sentenced to, or rather convicted of kidnapping, may not reflect the, the epidemic we have around this. So it's not only talking about the sentencing, the judgment, convicting people and saying you must die by hanging on the other. The point is, are we looking at the system that will bring them to the point where this will happen? Especially now, we know the challenges around delays in trial and the rest of them. So I think there are other creative ways of looking at this challenge and focusing on existing laws we have in the country, especially the Nigerian Correctional Service Act, Section 2, Sub 1A, what it talks about compliance with human rights standards, and good correctional practices. I don't think, if you look at the last Edo law on that, or the existing Edo law on kidnapping, is that of 2013. Mm-hmm. I don't really know what the punishment is.
Okay, Mrs. Ogu. Mrs. Ogu, just to summarize what you've just said, you in the beginning you told that people who might have been sentenced are still alive even up until now, even if they were sentenced to death penalty. Mm-hmm. You also mentioned the fact that there might be errors when it comes to sentencing. Now, with that in mind, what are the possible legal and human rights concerns surrounding the amendment to the Kidnapping Prohibition Law?
Okay, I couldn't get that.
I asked if there are human violations rights or maybe concerns surrounding this prohibition law, that is this kidnapping prohibition law.
Of course, internationally, the movement is towards moratorium against death penalty, because death penalty is conceived, to constitute even torture, and the finality of it. I've mentioned this. When the system that produces that kind of judgment is not trusted, you know that you can't even be sure about the justice of the matter. You remember what Lord Dennis said about 9 persons going free instead of one innocent person going to pay, the ultimate price in this circumstance. So what I am saying in effect is that I am not in support of death penalty. That is the major point I'm trying to make, because fundamentally it is against the human rights provision on rights to life. And that because I equally know that there are other ways of responding to the challenge, looking at the roots of the problems and addressing that without just treating the symptoms.
Okay, then. To the other matter of power in Edo State, do you foresee any changes or rather challenges in implementing both the stricter... I'm sorry, do we still have you there?
They foresee any problem in what?
Yes, I was asking, do you foresee any challenges in implementing both the stricter kidnapping law and also the electricity reform laws?
Of course, there will be... There's an existing challenge, because already it's not about sentencing one to death. At the end of the day, the expectation is that somebody that has been sentenced to death needs to be executed. It's not happening already. And we have a provision of the law. We are taking steps. I think this provision is like taking us back, because there's, positive steps that has been taken in the Correctional Service Act, which speaks about 10 years after which somebody has been sentenced and has exhausted all the appeals. Such a person, the death sentence can be commuted to life. I think the Edo State legislature should be thinking towards life sentence, in this circumstance, and not the death penalty. And the major problem is how many people are caught, actually. And when they are caught, how many have been processed to the point of conviction? This is what we should be looking at, not, and what is the process? Was there torture involved along the line and other human rights infringements? So I think we should look better at our system and find different ways of dealing with these matters, looking at the angle of rehabilitation and other things. Okay. We can't continue this way. Yes.
And what is your take on the electricity reforms? Do you think this is going to bring better power to the people of Edo State?
Yeah, the electricity reform is a step in the right direction. I think it is expected that by May this year, all the states must have keyed into this. I think those states that have taken this initiative by having their own electricity regulatory commissioner are on the right step, because this is about their people. Electricity is about the progress and development of any environment. So that is the easiest any state can offer, the simplest thing any state can offer its citizens. So, and the only thing we know is that it is cost intensive, and maybe that's why some states are shying away from that. So those states has really taken a bold step, thinking of its own electricity market. The only thing we expect is that these states equally will consider investment in this area so that they take off in a very solid way, not just like the issues we have currently where infrastructure, maintenance, and the rest of them are still challenges till date.
All right. Well, Mrs. Ogu, I want to say thank you very much for giving us your afternoon and lending your voice on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you.